I want to publish my web API into a public endpoint instead of using the localhost. You can still using the localhost, but later when we'll move to add a Xamarin Forms application, actually you can still call the localhost from the Windows UWP application, but from Android and iOS simulators you need to add some configuration to Visual Studio and to IIS in order to be able to access the localhost from the emulator. To make things simple and easier, I'll just publish my web API into a public endpoint, and here I choose Azure. If you are new to Azure, actually you can start free, so you can get a free account with just your credit card. You can get 3 months free account where you have 200 USD each month for testing, and if you are a student you can get a free account only using your student card. I created an account on Azure, and here it is my dashboard on Azure, and right here I'll go and provision a web application from Azure. Then I'll go back to Visual Studio and upload my ASP.NET application code to this server. So I go to create a new resource by clicking create resource. Then here from these templates I choose web app, because what I want to create here is a web app. In this window it is asking for a public URL endpoint that I'll be using and under which my web application will be hosted in. So I call this to do app U1 for example. So I give it a name and it will have the suffix .azurewebsites.net, but I can change that to have a personalized URL. Then here I choose my subscription. I choose this default one. So for you might have another subscription name, call it pay as you go for example. For the resource group, if it is the first time you use Azure, then it will ask or it will suggest that you create a new resource group. For the OS, we'll be hosting our web app on Windows, but with ASP.NET Core that is now cross-platform, we can host it on Linux too. The app service plan, from here you can choose some other plans, but here we can keep this default one. After that is done, we hit create, and that will provision the web application for us. So while it's still provisioning the web app, we'll go back to Visual Studio, and here from Visual Studio I'll go and make a last change. So we saw that we are using SQL Server database because in app settings the connection string here is pointing there to a SQL Server database, but to make things simpler I'll just use SQLite. You can keep using SQL Server, it's okay, but for me here I'll be carrying with SQLite, so that in Azure I don't have to create a new service and pay for it, which will be a SQL Server. My app here is a demo app, so I can do that, but in a real world application, in a real production application, SQLite might be not enough, and moving to SQL Server might be the best option to do. So here I'll make some changes in order to use another database. Those changes are only on the startup. So from the startup here we'll change this one right here, use SQL Server, by telling it to use SQLite. So here we have the command for telling my app to use SQLite instead of SQL Server. We'll keep using the same key for the connection string, but we need to change the value of this connection string to use the connection string for a SQLite database, which is a simple string here. It says only data source and then the file for our database. It's an existing file, because it will be created later. So those are the only two changes in order to move from using SQL Server to use SQLite inside an ASP.NET application. Now let's go back to Azure, and here it tells me that the web app was created successfully. I will go to that web app. Actually, I'll move to another one that I have created earlier, which is right here. So you can go to this page by clicking on the link provided, or by selecting the resource or the service that you have created. So from here, if I hit browse, it will go to this website. It tells here that the site is under construction because we don't have any file on that service yet. From here, I need to use this publish profile from Visual Studio in order to be able to publish my application from Visual Studio to Azure. So I hit get publish profile, and that will go and download a publish settings for me. I'll use that publish settings from Visual Studio. So here from Visual Studio, the step to publish this application is to go to the project, right click, then hit publish. By hitting publish, now we get this window that exposes some options for publishing a web application from Visual Studio. So here we can connect to our Azure subscription from Visual Studio, and from there it will detect automatically our web app. But here, to make things simpler, I go and import the file that I have downloaded from the Azure portal. So I select that, then hit publish, and from here it asks where that file is located in. So it is in my downloads, and here it is. I select that file, and now Visual Studio will start connecting to Azure and send my web application, or create the zip and the DLL files that needs to be uploaded to Azure, to my website that I have created. Once that's done, the website will be launched inside the browser, and from here I can go to my API. So you see here it doesn't contain any web pages, because this is only a REST API, it's not a website. So from here I can go to API/todos, hit enter, and from here I get the empty string to say that for my database I don't have any data stored yet. To add data to this published web application, I can go back to Postman, and from within Postman the only thing I need to change is the localhost. So I can reuse my previously created requests and only change the URL. So I'll get this new URL right here and replace it with localhost. So I'll copy that, then come back to right here. Let's go to the post and change that by this new URL. You can hit send, and now it's sent to my Azure website, and here it is. Now it's telling us that it was sent successfully by the code to O1. If I go back to the get request and make a call to get all the to-dos, send, then now I get this right here. I can also go back to refresh, and I get my to-do stored in Azure.